Hello and welcome back to day 3 of 12 games of Christmas, and I can see loads of great new games here in the shared studio, but today we're going to focus on this one that I've created called Santa's Security. And the idea is you have to watch the stacks going through the conveyor belt, and as they appear through here, you've got to make sure nothing's getting through that isn't a toy. So for example, TNT, press the alarm, the poison into the smoke, and more TNT. And you've got to keep pressing it and making sure things go through, but if you accidentally press it when it's wrong, so we definitely want poison to go away, but if I press it again, I'm going to lose a life. And that's the premise of the game. Now, the actual difficulty you see here, if I press it too many times, I get game over. This was a very, very difficult game to make, and I won't be going through exactly how I made it in today's lesson, but I just want to go through some of the simple bits. So you can see here all of the code for the sprite one, which was all my different toys. You can see here I've got a few at the bottom which are the negative ones. So that was my code for this. I have a code for the conveyor belt, which I'll talk about shortly. I have 2 sprites for the box. I have a bit of code here in my, and you see here this big long bit of code here for creating the bag that's going to move along here. This needs a lot of code because it's going to tell everything else in my project where that bag is and how far along it is. And I've also got clones involved, which it was very difficult to create. I have a button which has basically 2 costumes, so it looks like you've pressed it here when you click on it, and that will check to see if I've got it correct or not. I have a very simple game over sprite, and I also have a start screen sprite. I wanted to do this as a sprite so that I could put it over the top of all my other sprites at the start of the game. Okay, so all I want to talk about today really is this conveyor belt and how I made it look like it was rolling along. So if I press green again, the green flag, and we can see after the start screen, you can see that it's got this appearance of it moving from right to left, traveling in this direction. And the way I actually did that was fairly straightforward. I had my costumes and I did my conveyor belt wider than the screen. And then I had these lines that I just shifted to the left and then maybe put another one background here so it kind of went in the loop. So they were just shifted slightly. And in the code, you'll see here, when I receive start, set the speed to 3. That's actually for something to do with the bags, but I've just put it in here because it felt like the correct place to put how fast things were moving. Forever, next costume, wait 0.1 seconds, next costume. That wait just allows that idea of it not just speeding through and making it look too fast. It just slows it down a little bit. I could actually have another wait here to slow it down even more. You can see there it's slowing, but you get that kind of jerky motion, whereas when I didn't have it, it's a bit smoother and it flows through. That could also do with how I've done my costumes. The other parts of this code is simply about checking the score and whether to turn up the speed, but the speed actually doesn't affect the conveyor belt. It actually affects the sack, so nothing too much to worry there. And this is for if all the lives are gone, to stop everything. But all you really need to worry about is the idea of creating these costumes with the lines that look like they're moving and then repeating through it over and over again. Another area I wanted to talk about is my box, and this is more about how I use the costumes. Now you'll see this box here has this little line, and I use some gradients just to kind of give that colouring effect, like maybe perhaps there's light shining on it. But this is the key line here, okay? This is just lots of different shapes. You know, I can move it out and you can see that's just that shape. This is just a line. But when you put them together, you get this idea, this optical illusion of an empty box. So when I open up this sprite, which is just the kind of front and top, what actually is happening is I've created a sprite that looks like this, and then this goes over the top of it. And on the second costume, I've created this colour. So I've just changed the colour, and I've changed it to half transparent, which is this little box here with the red liner through it. Transparent means invisible, and half a bit of grey. And the costume's going to switch from there to there. So as something is passing through underneath, so you can't see it, it's going to flick to this costume, which is half invisible, which means we can see what's underneath it. And because in this sprite, everything behind this is purple, if I move this out of the way, you can see it's purple, then you get this effect that you can see through the box. So again, press the green flag, you'll see it in the corner. What's actually happening is this bag is going underneath this one and on top of the other one. So you get this impression that you can see the box. So I'm getting errors. I'm not pressing the button fast enough, but you can see how it works. It's going through and it switches on. You'll notice as well that the bag also goes transparent. And if you look at the bag here, I've got two costumes, one where it's transparent and one where it's not. The way I know when to change and to switch the costumes is a little bit complicated. It's all about knowing what the coordinate is of this bag. Basically, when it gets to a certain point, and you can see here in the code, when I receive scan, then it's going to switch to costume, and when I receive stop scan, it's going to switch back. And that scan and stop scan you see deep within the code of the sprite of the sack, and it's basically looking at these coordinates and saying, when are you in a certain area, that means you need to scan. That's a little bit complicated, but I'm just kind of showing you how the conveyor belt works and why I've got this box and how I can make things appear like they're in the box. My game's pretty simple. I would love for someone to remix this. They can sign in and then remix and create something maybe a bit more inventive, or maybe more of a game than what I've created. Please do remix it. Please do share it on 12 Games of Christmas as well. I'd love to see your project shared on there so we can share it with the world. And thank you so much for checking out day 3 of 12 Games of Christmas.